Welcome back to Season 2 of Conversations with Colie podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Miller, the author of the book series A through Z Guide to Raising a Good Human, a book series that I wrote to start the communication process between parents and children, starting from birth and why conversation is important. This year, I want to invite you to join me and my guests as we talk about all the subjects and topics that we hear about in everyday life, like human trafficking, grief, relationships, near-death experiences, and all the insights that we can learn from these subjects and topics, and how to look at things from both sides of the spectrum without using bias. Join me and my guests this season as we heat up the summer and the airwaves with our hot topics, and we start opening the doors and shaking out the rugs that we have been carrying with us through generations to truly be the change.
Welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Colie. Today I'm talking with Shari Lillico. Shari is an author, a speaker, intuitive soul alignment healer, and coach. Shari is going to share her journey of self-discovery. Welcome, Shari.
Nicole, it's so good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Before we get into our conversation, I always ask an icebreaker question. So this one is for you. Name a favorite holiday memory.
I would say it was when I was a kid. My mom and dad and grandma and grandpa, they drove us down. I'm in Canada. So we drove down to LA and went to Disneyland. So just the driving and being down there, and then Christmas Day, I remember how all of us were missing the snow. We were missing the Christmas trees and everything else. And we went and found this little Christmas tree that was decorated and brought it into the hotel room.
Oh, that's awesome. I'm from Wisconsin, so not too far from Canada. And so I get it. Not seeing the snow. I moved to Florida, so I didn't see the snow for a long time. It doesn't feel like Christmas when you don't have all those little things, right?
No, not at all.
Exactly. Yeah. Tell everybody about yourself.
So I don't even know where to start on that one. Where would you like me to start on that one?
Who are you? What do you do?
So I am me. I am finally admitting that. I didn't for the longest time, but I am me, and I work with women and children to inspire them to be themselves, basically, when they've lost themselves. So when I was a child, I always hid myself, and I was the person that I thought I should be. Right. And that was right into adulthood. And even though I had a couple breakthroughs, I always tended to come back and just hide. And then finally, when my kids left home, I finally decided that I was not hiding any longer. And I had to find out who I was. And that was one heck of a journey.
Yeah, I can imagine. So let me ask you, what made you feel like you had to hide from childhood?
I don't really know for sure. I think it was just the whole feeling like I had to look after other people. I had to be like I said, be the person that they wanted me to be so I would be accepted. Right. Yeah. Because of course, as children, we get into doing things that we like to do. And then, of course, if they don't match, and it's not because my parents were nasty or anything else. They were disciplining, right?
Right.
So, or they were scared. I mean, I can understand that one. I had a similar scare with my children, so I was scared. And then you get don't do that anymore,
Right.
basically, right?
Right.
So then it's like, oh, okay, so I'm not supposed to do that anymore. Okay, so what am I supposed to do? And then
Yeah.
you just kind of take that in, right? And over and over and over again.
Yeah. So then you kind of just started showing up as like a almost like a people pleaser.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Do you
Yeah.
want to talk about how that translated into your adult life?
So, it was basically I would follow rules. I love rules. I still like rules. I'm a
I mean, I
logical,
like some rules
I'm
too.
logical too, so I like rules. But I would follow the rules. If I didn't follow the rules, then I would feel just horrible, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So then, and then even, but getting into adulthood, I mean, teenagers that was fun, but getting into adulthood, it's like, okay, well, I wanted to get married, I wanted to have children, so that was what I went after.
Yeah.
Was that what I really wanted? I love my children, I love, I love the life I had. But it was being the person that I knew I had to be. So I was the employee, I was the wife, I was all of that kind of stuff. And it was just,
You were checking all those boxes.
I was checking all those boxes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what was the catalyst that kind of showed you how you were just checking boxes and you really kind of lost yourself?
Mm. It was when my kids left home and I started going, now what am I supposed to be focusing on? Because I had nothing else I was working
Yeah.
and I was, living with my husband, and we still had our life and all that kind of stuff. But it was like, now what? Because
Yeah.
all my thoughts, how do I say it? Everything that I decided to do was basically, it had always been around the girls or my husband or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Even when, like, years before that, I had strayed a little bit and I had found something that I really liked, and I end up giving that up. So it was, and it was like, I can't. People would ask me, okay, well, what do you want to do? Or what do you like? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I have
You
no
couldn't
idea.
you had no idea what you
I
even
had
liked.
no idea what I liked.
Yeah.
None at all. I couldn't
Yeah.
name off, like, now, you can name off a sunset or something like that or whatever. But at that point, I couldn't even think of, roses or sunsets or anything. There was just nothing.
Yeah. So when you realized that, what was your first thought around that?
It was depressing as heck.
Yeah.
Like, I was it was devastating. It's like,
Yeah.
how in the world can I not even know what I like?
Yeah. Yeah. So you have this discovery that you don't even know what you like. So you recognize it. How do you start moving through that when you recognize it? And how did that kind of make you feel? You know what I mean? At first, like, did you feel hopeless? Did you feel like this couldn't change? Did you feel stuck?
Um, in occasions I felt stuck, definitely. We all do, I think, at some point. That's what makes us, chug on. But when I did mine and when I talked to my clients about that kind of stuff, it's basically just find one thing, right? Like, I wanted to, what I ended up focusing on was getting into shape.
Okay.
So I started that, which then led to the self-development, like Mind Valley and all that kind of stuff. So the self-development community, right?
Yeah.
Which led to
right. Yeah, because it starts to
spirituality
lead
and
you down.
metaphysics and energy work, which I actually end up becoming an Eden energy medicine practitioner, because that's where the road was
Taking
leading.
you. Yeah.
But I mean, to actually see those even signs, or even to know how to or even take the courage to follow the path, was scary.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's like, what's going to happen if
Can I ask
I do this? Right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, my husband, I was one way with my husband and my family, and then all of a sudden I'm changing. Right? I'm finding myself. So then my interests started being different, and I was scared at what was going to happen.
Yes. Now,
What I was going to lose.
Yes. And that's a weird thing to be thinking, because now when we think transformation, we think good, butterfly. You transform from this, one form to another form that's even more glorified and better, but you don't take into consideration you were showing up a certain way for your husband and your family. How old were you when this epiphany started?
I was in my early 40s.
Right. So you're in your early 40s. You feel, maybe, I don't know, the way I view 40s is like you're set in your ways. Your life is just going to coast, right? Right. You're set.
Yep.
But now here you are, you're discovered, wait a minute, I have been operating from a way that's not authentically me. So take us on that little bit of how that started to transform your relationships.
So geez. Okay. So basically, I mean, it was all such a learning curve, and it wasn't just the relationships, it was my relationship to myself also, right?
Yeah.
Which was the big one, because you have to actually start realizing how you have been showing up for yourself, how you've been showing up for them, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So it was I don't even know how to answer this one. It was it I said, I'm not even sure how to answer this one. My kids were okay with it to a point. Well, my one daughter was okay. My husband, I started looking at the way I was with our relationship.
Right.
And that it did change things, because then it's like, oh, I'm blaming him for things that were in my control. Okay, so I will, like, I'll give you a bit more of an example. So we had this house. He has lots of hobbies. So he took up a lot of space. And then of course there was the kids' bedrooms that I hadn't actually ventured into at all or done anything with. And I'm like, I have no space for my own. Like when I got into my healing stuff, it's like, I don't have an office. I don't have a place for an office. I don't have, this was part and the parcel years before that too came up. And it was like, somebody actually said, it was a Brene Brown YouTube something or other for blaming or shaming or something or other. But it was like, oh my gosh, it's like, I need to start taking responsibility for the things I can change.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then that actually made things a lot easier for both of us, because it was like, okay, I'm blaming him because I don't have a spot, but I can make a spot myself out of one of the kids' rooms.
Right.
Right. And I can do it myself. I don't need him to do it. I can do it
Right.
myself. Right.
Right.
So it was finding my independence again too. That was big for me. But
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's funny because something as simple as finding a space, we feel resentful. You're taking up all this space. This is your partner, your best friend. Now the focus is off the children, and now you're focused on him. And you're finding yourself getting upset at things that you can do for yourself. A lot of people struggle with that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fights around stuff like that.
So can be.
Yeah, as you were starting to discover, like, hey, I can take the initiative, I can do the things that I want to do, and I can get for myself. How did that start to make you feel?
A lot more powerful, a lot more independent, a lot more. It was still scary.
Yeah.
But I was actually, proud of myself. I was proud that I was actually able to do this. When I got the room done, it was like, oh, I can do this, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, it's not like I didn't know that I couldn't do stuff, because I mean, I'd done stuff for years for everybody else, but not necessarily for myself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's actually different than doing it for somebody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How many people do you feel struggle with doing for themselves, or even realizing that they don't do for themselves?
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
A lot. I've talked to, a lot of women who are in this boat where they're, empty nesters.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
And, you have to start getting them to think about, doing for themselves. Yeah, no, I don't know. That's a good statistic that I should be looking up, because that would be interesting to actually know if there's anything for a statistic out there that.
Yeah, because I know that a lot of people struggle with it. I am about to become an empty nester. My youngest, I'm a mother of 7. My youngest is going to be moving out, and it gives me anxiety. When I was a young mom and they were little, terrorizing, I was like, I cannot wait till you're 18. But then you find this symbiosis where the relationship is awesome and you just love having them around and they become your focus. And yes, you start doing for them and you're seeing the world through their eyes and all the things.
Yeah.
And then they say bye-bye and you're left alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what do you think is the main struggle outside of doing for yourself when you become alone? Maybe you're a stay-at-home mom and you don't have a job. So then what does that do to someone?
Well, you said like anxiety, depression, because honestly, when when you can go, now what? Because your focus has been so focused on, like I said, their needs, their wants, their desires. You make your decisions from all those standpoints of their stuff. Then when you have to start looking at, okay, do I focus? Well, I mean, they can always focus on somebody else. They can go into the community or whatever, but you still need to look at yourselves. And it can be depressing when you go, oh my goodness, what has happened?
Yeah.
What has happened? And you're lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, do you have suggestions for people pre-empty nest? What can people do to avoid getting to that state of depression?
Start working on your own things. Take even 10 minutes, even if it's just a week, find something that you like to do. Get a friend, get a sister, a brother, a mother, whoever you can. Like, I know I didn't have a whole lot of people that I felt comfortable reaching out to. But if you have even just one person, get them to help you just go a little bit in and start focusing on yourself. And then, of course, self-love is a big one. If we can start looking at just little things that we love about ourselves, it will actually lead to kind of what we like to do and all that kind of stuff, and grow a hobby, get some interests.
Yeah.
You don't have to go out and, pursue them like a bunch or anything else, but just start figuring it out. And that's not, that's not easy. I know when I had to start, it was just figuring out what I liked. So it was like people would give me an example of, what did you like as a kid? Like blowing bubbles. Okay, so go get yourself some bubbles and blow some bubbles like for 10 minutes a day. Just bring that little bit of joy into your life.
Yeah.
And once you start doing that, it gets easier and easier. And then you can start investigating, like start investigating. There's so many things you could do. And when you get to that point of, oh, I could never do that, try it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, if you don't like it, then you can stop. I mean, there's a caveat to it. I mean, if you don't have a lot of money or you don't want to spend a bunch of money, I mean, try things that you don't have to spend a lot of money on, or listen to web podcasts or webinars or, that kind of stuff. And you
Meet
can
new
get lots of
people.
ideas because everybody is doing something different, because everybody's journey is different. And you can pick up a lot of, oh, that sounds interesting. Ideas that you can sit there and internalize and go, well, does that sound like something I'd want to do? And then if it is, then try it. If there's something in you that goes, like I said, no, if there's a no, then go a little bit deeper and see why there's a no. Is it just not interesting to you? Or is it something in the back of your mind, your subconscious or whatever, that's saying, no, you can't do it. You're too old, you're too whatever. You're not creative enough. You're not anything like that, right?
Those
Like
limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
So do you have something that in particular that you do when limiting beliefs come up for you? Because I think that limiting beliefs come up for us no matter what we've accomplished in our life and what we've tried.
There are a few different things that I do for limiting beliefs. I've got enough training around them so I can go quite a bit deeper than the average person. But when I was starting, being aware of them is the beginning. Like if you can actually go, oh, there is something there that's stopping me, right? And if you don't have anybody that you can go to help you through it, then even just being aware of it and keeping it in your mind, and then when something else comes up and that same belief shows up again, it's just coming out further and further and further. And when you are ready to actually discover it and know what it is, it'll hit you. It will just come out and go, oh. And then when that happens, you can go back, okay, when did I start seeing that? Right. And it's like, okay, so it was then. Okay, so now is there a way that I can reword this to kind of diffuse it. One of the ways that I first did it was clearing it. So it's like, I'm not old. If it's, I'm too old to do this, it's like,
Yeah.
How did that go? And I still do it occasionally. It's just, I don't do it often anymore. It works really well. Clear, delete, cancel, and just let it go.
Yeah.
Across all time, I clear, cancel, delete across all time, space, and dimension, and just let it go. And then when it comes up again, I clear, cancel, delete across all time, space, and dimension, and it just let it go.
Yeah.
And then it actually clears it. Even it does. It might take a few times because there's layers. Beliefs come in layers.
Yeah.
So I see them as a tree. When I look at somebody who has some serious ones, they're trees, and you have one core belief, but then there's other beliefs that come off of it, and they go back into your past lives, into your, ancestral stuff. And it's getting more and more.
Yeah. Absolutely. I don't think people realize that. People think healing, oh, I just acknowledge it, I'm healed. No, there's so much work that goes into it, and it's a process, and it's a never ending process. I feel like we're in this process for forever once you discover it. But the rewards keep getting better.
Yeah. I've got a friend who's been doing it for years. She's now in her 70s, and she is still doing it. And she's like, Shari, this is keeping me stuck. I said, I need you to help me. So we all need help. We all can't just do it ourselves, because sometimes those things that are, like I said, in our past, in our ancestral DNA, in our past lives or whatever, can be so deep, and we can have them so well buried within us that we can't get them ourselves.
Yeah.
For whatever, like it's our whole system saying, no, you've got to stay away from that because it's keeping us safe, right? But we know it's hampering us. We know it's stopping us. All that kind of stuff. So you need help. And there's nothing wrong with it. Everybody needs help. That was a big thing for me. I was like, I can do this myself, right? When I started on this, I was like, I can do it all by myself. I can't do it all by myself.
Yeah. And that's a whole discovery when you realize that you do need to lean on people. You do need to delegate things off. You do need to have mentors and coaches and things like that. You need that stuff in your life. You need therapy sometimes. Sometimes you need to talk to somebody on the outside that maybe they don't know how to fix your problem, but just maybe they have a different insight.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Just getting a different viewpoint of what you're looking at. I had a client one time, and she came to me, and I won't go into her exact stuff, but it was to do with her son. And I was like, you know what? You need to look at it different. Because she was like, and I was like, you need to look at it different. He's actually made that step. She's like, oh my gosh, you're right. So it was just, how it was like she was going, and it was like, but
you shined a light
celebrate the other part of it, right? And she's like, oh, and it just flipped her mindset on it, and she was able to look at it differently. And it, but it's
absolutely. Talk about how you became an author.
That was interesting. So while I was on this journey, I discovered that I really liked dragons. I'm going to put it right out there. I love dragons.
Awesome.
But in my spiritual journey. But anyway, I was partway through, of course, still learning, still doing whatever. But I woke up in the middle of the night, this one night, with a story in my head. And it was a children's book story. And it was not something that I actually had, can't say I didn't ever think of writing a children's story, because probably the thought had come through at some point. But of course, it was one of those ones that it's like, yeah, there's absolutely no way I could do this, right?
Right.
Anyway, so I had this story in my head and it wouldn't go away. I didn't get up and write it. I was like, nope, this is silly. I'm not doing it. It was right. It was the whole thing of, well, there was the whole bunch of limiting beliefs on that, but it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away, and it wouldn't go away. So then I finally wrote it, and I was like, okay, now I wrote it. Showed it to my one daughter, and she's like, cool. And I was like, cool. So I put it I put it into a file folder and put it onto my bookshelf. Left it there. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't about to do anything with it, because I really didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know how to go about doing anything or anything else. And of course, well, there was, like I said, limiting beliefs on, well, I can't, right? I just can't. So a few years later, I was actually in a Jack Canfield
like a master class.
Yeah, master class kind of thing. Yeah. And he had us doing a whole bunch of stuff, and there was a whole bunch of authors in this master class. But before I get to that point, he had started us writing in a gratitude journal and working on the self-love statements.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done that before, but of course I had let it lapse, like we always do, because, something's good for us. We always end up letting it lapse, and then we end up.
I'm glad you pointed that out, because it's so true.
But so I was doing that. And in this class, like I said, there was a whole bunch of authors, and it got me thinking that maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
So I started reaching out to a whole bunch of these different authors and saying, okay, how do I go about this? And, just investigating it a little bit. And then I started reaching out to hybrid publishers, and I ended up talking to one, and she really liked my story. Well, she asked me about my story, and she was doing a compilation book as well. So then she offered me a spot in the compilation book, as well as helping me publish my children's book. And I didn't give her an answer. I ran away, actually. I was like, oh my God, excuse the language.
No, you can swear on my show. You're good.
Oh my goodness, that's way too much. Can't do it. There's no way. Yep. I'm not a writer. I'm not creative that way. There's no way. And I ran away, and I actually ran to a friend. And I sat there and I talked to her, and she just sat there, and she's really good about it. She just sits there and she just looks at you until she makes you realize that she believes in you and you can do it.
So and you wrote a book. Like, you were creative. You wrote a children's book.
I did.
But as we were saying, you are creative because you wrote a children's book. So it's interesting that you were kind of shying away from that.
I was always told that I wasn't a good writer. I never saw myself as creative. I was never artistic. So yeah, I mean, you believe what you
hear.
You believe what you believe, and you hear what you hear. And I mean, I knew I could write some poetry, but it was like what I had to do and all that kind of stuff. So it was, yeah. And then, so I end up writing the story for the compilation book. I don't know if it's the most well-written story because it was the first one besides my children's book that I wrote. But it was my story, and I got it out there to actually share that we get lost, right? And that we have to find ourselves and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, published my children's book as well, which is for kids finding to be themselves, right? Instead of hiding. So
that's so awesome. And then I see another book behind you. Is that yours as well?
I have the Fred book, which is my children's book. And then that is the compilation book that I have the story in.
Awesome.
So, yeah, it's called Women Who Shine, and it's 30 women who write their stories of overcoming some kind of challenge. Some are bigger, some are, not as huge. Of course, there's abuse and, all that kind of stuff, but there's like mine where it was just, I was lost. And I took it right from being a child and being, kind of lost, not being able to be myself, hiding, to all the way to finding myself and
that's awesome.
Stepping into the scary parts, because stepping into that and sharing it is scary. It's scary.
Yes, it is. It is. And we're so afraid to be judged. Did you find that when you were sharing who you really were and stepping into who you really were, that you were more embraced than shunned?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was worried about being shunned.
Yeah.
I was worried. Like, I had a lot of, when we were getting it ready to put out there, there was a few times where it's like ready to call it. It's like, no, you can't put my story in there. Nope, I can't do it, kind of deal.
Yeah.
And it was, being
vulnerable,
right?
It's a mental health struggle to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yes. But once you get past it, you see it feels really good.
Yeah. I think that is also comes in layers, right? Like, you can get through being vulnerable one step at a time. You're not going to get there all the way in like one big jump, right? You've got to you do it in layers. As you grow, your growth happens in layers, and the things that come up in the one layer, they can come up later and again, it just goes a little deeper.
Yeah.
Right. And you just have to keep. Yeah. It's like, I've already dealt with this and here we go again. Right.
Yes.
Kind of deal.
Yes. But that's the way life is. So talk about your coaching program.
So my coaching program is more of a healing coaching program. So I work with not just, because I'm an Eden energy medicine practitioner, with other modalities also. I can intuitively see what needs to be worked on. So then we go and we clear the limiting beliefs. We clear the fog that, that's my coaching program is more of a healing coaching program because I work with other things besides just your without coaching and listening and all that kind of stuff. Of course, I have to listen and things like that. But I go into your limiting beliefs. I go into your mindset. I help balance your physical as well as your mental, your emotional, your whatever that needs to come up comes up. Because like I said, in layers, we work in layers. So then each layer has usually emotions that go with it. It has beliefs that go with it. It might have a physical. If you're really, really stuck, you could have physical things happening too. So getting everything working together I feel is something that you need to do to actually get far. But then with the coaching program, with coaching, it's just basically walking you through. So, how to be aware, how to start taking responsibility, setting some goals, finding things that you love. If you don't know, like, and everybody's different in their path on where they need to start, right? But then
Yeah.
if you can't figure out what you like or want, then of course we start digging into that. What are some dreams that you wouldn't even dream of dreaming, if
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. And then of course it's then following up with it and giving you tools, and that can be anywhere from meditations to tools for finding joy, or tools for
Yeah.
sitting down and journaling or writing or
So you work,
gratitude or whatever.
right. You work one-on-one on a case-to-case
I
basis.
Yes, I do. Yeah,
Absolutely. So
it's
you
all
work on
very,
somebody's complete healing process starting from ground zero. I love that.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah. One-on-one. I like one-on-one. I haven't expanded out to group yet.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I do like the one-on-one, because then it's all, because
Everybody's got a different struggle, really.
everybody's unique on where they're at, right?
Yeah.
And where their journey starts, and where they want it to go, and yeah.
I love it. Where do people find you if they want to follow you?
They can find me at ShariLillico.com, or on Facebook, and it's I am Shari Lillico.
I love that. I love that. I am Shari Lillico. I love that. And I love in your story that how you highlight that you didn't even know what you like. Because there's a lot of people who just are blocked in that way and they can't put their finger on why.
Yeah.
So I think that if somebody out there listening feels that way, they feel they're not, that conversation, this conversation may help them figure out that it's not that they're not, it's that they just haven't, discovered that they
Yeah,
were
and
lost.
it's buried, and they're not aware of it. So bringing
Yeah.
awareness to that part opens, actually bringing awareness to realizing that you're not, brings an openness and allows stuff to start coming in.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about the whole piece of it, is being aware just opens everything up.
And it
Everything.
lightens you up. It
Right.
really
It
does.
does.
It
It
lightens
does.
you up.
Well, it lightens. It can also actually be heavy, because then when you know that you're actually aware, um, it can actually be heavy, because it's like, okay, then you start going in your head about, how did I get like this? Why am
Mm.
I like this? And then you start all the negative comments on top of it too, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, how stupid could I have been for, getting myself into this situation? Or,
Mm.
there's all these different, I mean, everybody has their own negative thoughts, right?
Yeah.
But those are some of the kinds of negative thoughts that I had, that were like, made you go, oof.
Yeah.
Right?
That's interesting. Yeah.
It can,
Yeah. Because,
can take you more deeper into the depression. So
yeah.
I'm kind of hoping that using awareness, to start it's not to let your negative thoughts take
Run.
hold. It's to
Hmm.
bring awareness so that you can choose something different.
Absolutely. Amen to that. Do you have any final thoughts you'd like to share with listeners?
Final thought: you can be you. You can do what you want. what you want. For the best of everybody, of course. Not me. Gonna put a caveat to that.
Within the legal limits of the
illegal.
law. Thank you for clarifying that.
Harmful to others, whatever. Right. But you are worthy.
Yeah.
You are worthy to, step into who you are and what you want and what you want to do. And if they ever need somebody to listen, they don't have to, I'm not saying they have to be a client. If they need somebody to listen, I'm here.
Oh, that's so nice, Shari. Yes. Thank you so much. I so appreciate it. And where can people find your book if they're interested?
Both of them are on Amazon. You can, I think you should be able to type in Shari Lillico, but it's Fred Does It His Way or Women Who Shine by Shari Lillico, because you will find other books, of course, from Women Who Shine on Amazon. But if you're looking specifically for mine, it's Women Who Shine by Shari Lillico.
Awesome. And I'm going to find those links and post those in the show notes as well.
Thank
you, Shari, so much for being here. And thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much. You have a beautiful day.
You too.
Thanks.
Thank you for spending time listening to our conversation. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, please subscribe, like, and share so we can reach more listeners with our powerful messages. And stay tuned to hear about our affiliates and recommendations. They change from episode to episode.